All right, real quick before we get started with the review, I want to give my buddy a huge shout out and thank you for letting me take a look at his Metroplex, his Titan class Legacy Cybertron Metroplex. Thanks, man, because without you, this review wouldn't be possible. Let's dig into it. Boom, guys, and just like that, here we are in his alt mode. Now this thing is massive, as you guys can see. Doesn't even really fit into my review space for anything at all whatsoever. I do think this thing looks super cool like this. I mean, it's very reminiscent of the original figure. It transforms damn near the same way. I think it's like 95% the same. But there are some things here and there that I don't really like the hollow gap right here. I think this really could have been covered up. Just a simple piece of plastic, one extra piece, one extra little mold piece placed in there, boom, done. I think there is some missing paint app opportunity here. Like this piston right here could have been painted silver, just to kind of give it, you know, a bit of a look on the piston, you know what I mean? And what you guys see here on this side is mirrored on the other side here. And as you see right here, I do have his little saw thing down so he can, you know, I guess like cut up the ground and stuff. But you can bring it up and you can lock it into place. You just unfold the front piece like that, and there you go. Just like that, it folds up and sits in place. It does rotate. You don't get a whole lot of rotation movement out of it, however, but it does. I feel like it rotates enough for the job, you know, if that makes sense. Obviously, because of this piece right back here. Basically, it's the handle right here. This piece right here is what's stopping it from going any further. But if that piece wasn't there, you could get over this piece right here and kind of bring it all the way around. So I guess if you really wanted to, you could remove that handle piece. Up to you, because he does have these two handles here as well. There are some pretty cool paint apps aside from the missing paint apps. The red detail right here, the silver here. This section up here is painted a dark blue. I'll show that when we get to robot mode. There is some blue paint right here. Yeah, there's the gold paint up here. There's the gold paint right here. There is some Cybertronian detailing in this as well, which I think is a really nice touch. The red arrow here, and this thing does rotate. I think that's super cool. I do wish, however, I know people don't like gimmicks because they feel like they're intrusive, but I feel like this should have been motorized, and that would have really set this thing off, because if this was motorized, it wouldn't have intruded on anything whatsoever. It would have been completely housed here on its own, and that would have been something that I think would have been super, super cool. The back of the alt mode looks like this. His head is just kind of hanging out there. That's supposed to be folded in like that, but yeah, his head just kind of hanging out. Here is the flip side of it. Again, the mirrored side. I think that these guns should have been able to articulate around as well, instead of just going up and down. Again, I feel like they should have been able to articulate around. That would have really kind of set the figure's play value off, I think, as well. Not saying that there's not a whole lot of play value here. Don't get me wrong, there is tons, but a little bit added play value right here if it was able to rotate, go up and spin and rotate and stuff. I don't really see how that could not have been done at all. The top section right here, these are a little hollow. Well, not a little, they are a lot hollow. There is some flex right here, which I think is really unfortunate. I kind of feel like maybe there should have been a bar right here for stability or something like that. But you know, it's so it is one of those things when it is in robot mode, because this folds down for robot mode. You don't really see the hollowness or anything, but for this mode, it is hollow. But I guess on the plus side, if you guys really if that really doesn't bother you, or if you guys want to try to find a positive outlook on it, you can put your Micromasters in here and kind of act like they're mini cons, and you know, they can essentially be a seat, like a driver's seat. You can have a driver right here piloting Metroplex, and then have like 2 commanders or lookouts right here, kind of like on a pirate ship or something. So it's not all too bad. It's not all lost, and I think maybe you can even sit them down, depending on the figure. I would think that would, you know, depending on the figure would determine if it would fit or not. But I think fold the legs up maybe a little bit. Yeah, there we go. You can kind of sit them down like that, kind of make it look like they're just, you know, chilling out, going along for a ride. And of course, you guys can put them in the mouth. Let me pull this back, pull this down. This thing is massive. You can put them in the mouth and capture them like that. So again, there's tons of play value here with this figure, and I think that's something that's super cool. Yeah, let's dig into, from here we'll go into robot mode 1. Yes, 1. Alright everyone, let's take a look at his first robot mode, or work mode. Work mode. This guy is so big, he's wider than my space, as you guys can tell. But his weapon does break apart into 2 pieces and can be put on to his arm. So there's the, I guess, the digger, or the ground breaker, whatever you want to call it. And here is the shovel right there. And here's his head. His head does something super cool, because he does have 2 different faces. So this is the backside of his bigger robot head. What's cool is it does have a sliding mechanism for each robot mode. So, because I guess like to flip it around, if you want to get it like closer, you can get it closer, like a further out kind of look on the head. Or further back. I guess it's like a preference thing, you know, if you want it to, how you want them to look. I think it's a really cool option. I really dig that. Just something that's, you know, you didn't really need, that they just included, which I think is a really, really cool inclusion. We've got the white-backed Autobot logos here and on the other side. Again, I think this thing looks super, super cool. I think it's a really delightful robot mode, and it's a really simple transformation to get here from vehicle mode. It's really intuitive and a lot of fun, and I can definitely see some kids enjoying it, you know. There are a few, I guess, like problems that I'm having with this guy here. He does have an ab crunch, as you guys can see right there as I knock over the background. But his legs here aren't really stable, I guess. Like maybe it's his A stance, his ankle rocker just isn't. It's not very stable. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's planted. It's just, I don't know if it's like too much weight on the side or up front or something like that. I think maybe the plastic that the legs are made out of, because the legs, or the feet, let me pull them up, you guys can't see the feet. The feet are are made of like a softer plastic, instead of the harder plastic, like say the thighs, or the shins, or like this section of the arm, or up here, or whatever. The feet are made from a softer plastic, and I think that might be what's causing it, causing the lean, the forward lean that he has. But again, that could be because of all the extra weight here that's coming forward as well. But I think that if the extra weight coming forward is the cause of that, then this should have been beefed up, because, you know, obviously kids are going to want to display him in this mode or play with him in this mode, and adults are going to want to display him in this mode as well. But as you guys can see, if I move the arm forward, he kind of leaned forward just a little bit, and now he's kind of off balance. He's kind of doing this, right? But the other thing that I noticed too is that some of the paint up here, some of the blue is kind of chipped, and I asked my buddy if it was like that, or maybe, you know, did I do it when I was bringing him home, or did he do it, or whatever. But no, he said the paint was like that out of the box. There's a bit of a chip here, a couple of chips here, and right here on this side, and right up front as well. It's not even really chips. So what it is, it's the paint. When you paint anything, the edges where the paint sits is always going to be thinner because the paint's going around that corner. So they just didn't use enough paint to get full coverage. It's probably one layer of paint over this gray because it is a darker color. You only need one layer to really kind of, you know, get the color to the coverage of the color over the gray. You only really need the one layer. But normally when you go around corners, you want to do a second coat around the corners, and I don't think that Hasbro did that. This guy has some killer light piping that I really, the light piping is so good that it makes me wonder why they didn't give him LEDs like in the head and in the eyes. It's definitely like an odd choice. I love light piping, don't get me wrong, but it is one of those things where I'm like, there's so much space in there that you could have done LEDs for the eyes and the head and stuff. But yeah, that's the front of him, and here's the back of him. And as you guys can see or not see, I am fighting my workspace or my review space. Everything topples over. But as you guys can see right here, here is the alternate face for his bigger robot mode. Really cool idea to just kind of cover up the face like that, or the mouth, and well, it's actually the whole face. But it's a really cool idea, and they actually sculpted some detail on the mask, what I call it the back mask. But yeah, his second robot mode is pretty much right here. Figure's a really cool update to the original figure. Let's get him in his second robot mode and struggle with that one. Alright, so here's his second robot mode, and first of all, real quick, doesn't this look like the stabbing robot from Futurama? Just saying. You can just be like, what are you doing to me, Red? Anyway, the side weirdness, whatever, or oddball, nerd reference, whatever aside, I think the robot mode looks fantastic. Unfortunately, this is kind of where it starts to get really weird and begin to fall apart. Real quick before we dive into that, here's his weapon in its combined mode. This thing is massive, and DNA Design is making an upgrade kit for this guy that is going to make this even bigger. It's nuts, right? So let's get into kind of what the issues are with the robot mode. Like I said, this looks fantastic, right? Aside from some slight mistransformations on my end here, there is a couple of oddball things going on. So the ratchets in the shoulders are super heavy. I mean, right? It's super heavy ratchets, and unfortunately, whenever you move the ratchet, you can't really move it without moving the ab crunch. So you got to kind of hold it like this. And same thing on this side, really heavy ratchets. But the problem here is like the ratchets are inconsistent. This ratchet is stronger than this ratchet, and it's super weird. And I feel like the ab crunch isn't, it is ratcheted, but I don't feel like it's strong enough because of that. You know, I'm trying to move the arm, and his whole top half is moving back and forth, up and down. And as you can see, he doesn't hold his stance very well either. Now, the ratchets here on the arms, right here, very middle of the road kind of ratchets in terms of like soft or hard ratchets. Up here, it's a harder ratchet than right here, which is fine. It doesn't really bother me because this ratchet is, when I say this ratchet is heavier, it is, but it's not by much. It's just, this one's lighter, so you're going to end up turning right here at the forearm instead of up here at the bicep. So if you wanted to turn it, the bicep, you know, you can do that. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really bother me that much. I'm just pointing out the ratchets. The wrist does swivel. There's no ratchets in the wrist. The hand is articulated, but not individual fingers, right? It's all one giant hand. Again, DNA is making an upgrade kit that gives it articulated fingers. The one thing that I do absolutely think is cool, bring the head forward just a little bit, is that the mouth is articulated. He can open and close his mouth, which is pretty cool. And it's a really cool effect that Hasbro did here. The mouth is articulated, it does open, but they sculpted a bit of like an extra piece, or not even really an extra piece. They just, the way it's sculpted makes it look like it's open when it's really not. It's just kind of moving. It's just kind of like rotating and spinning. So the black plastic kind of makes it look like the inside of a mouth. But it's not inside of a mouth, if that makes any sense. It's a really cool optical illusion that they did. And I think it's a really good way to do an articulated jaw, especially if you don't want to have like a giant jaw or a giant piece or anything like that. But or if you're worried about like having like this giant piece kind of hang down or something, like I said, it's a really cool optical illusion. But light piping again is here, but the light piping is not as good in this mode because of the back of the head right here kind of blocks a lot of where the light would come in. But again, it is really, it's okay light piping, like I said, in this mode. You can kind of, just doesn't work as well as the other mode does because the back mask is covering it up. So the eyes are not as bright as they are in his work mode. But let's keep going with the inconsistencies in the ratchets. So my biggest problem here with the figure is the feet. The feet are not ratcheted, the ankles are not ratcheted, but they do stop right about there, so okay. That's, I guess, like a whatever, maybe. But the knees are heavy ratchets. You guys can see there, both sides. Now, the knees are very consistent in terms of how strong they are. But this is where the issue kind of comes into play for me with the ratchets, is this section right here is a very soft ratchet. And all of the weight of the figure is right here on that. I wouldn't even call it ankle ratchet, but on that lower shin ratchet. I hope over time that doesn't give out. And if it does end up exploding, then you can kind of already see how he can be leaned back and forth, and that's because of the lower shin ratchets not being close enough. There are some gaps in the teeth, and that is what's causing him to be able to lean forward and back like that. Now, it does catch him if he goes back too far, if he does go forward too far, but you can see he's a bit wobbly. Yeah, that's the second robot mode right there. There's the back part of it. This can house his weapon right here. You can put his weapon on his back, but again, it makes him really back heavy, and the ratchets on the lower shins don't really play nice when this thing is on his back. This thing is pretty freaking heavy for him. Yeah, let's dig into final thoughts. Alright guys, so here are my final thoughts on this guy. I can see why somebody who grew up with Cybertron wants this figure. Hell, I wanted this figure. There's a lot of play value here that I can see a kid really sinking his teeth into and really getting behind and enjoying. But with that said, I don't know. I kind of feel like it's okay at best, and really it just boils down to the ratchets in the lower shins being a lot weaker than what they are. The inconsistency in the ratchets in the shoulders, and the ab crunch not having a stronger ratchet in it, and really just the lack of LEDs up top. I really think that this figure really could have been set off with some LEDs in the eyes and in the head and stuff like that. And also the paint chips up here on the shoulders and stuff like that. Look, my buddy got this on discount on Amazon. I think after coupons and discount, I think he told me he paid like $117, $120 or something like that shipped. That's an $80 discount. For that price, I really can't argue. But for a $200 asking price for this guy, there are some really hollow bits in this guy that really shouldn't be there. He is missing his Minicon companion, which shouldn't even be a thing at $200. And yeah, like I said, he's okay. That's my professional opinion. He's okay. So, as always, guys, I will see you guys next video, whether it's news, review, whatever. I'll see you guys then. As always, take care of yourself, take care of each other. Cut it out. Later, guys.